Hello, strangers. But it's funny, because you look kind of familiar. This is story 129.
I work in an office building. It's haunted. It doesn't look haunted. Not the way people make things look haunted in movies. We have too good a cleaning crew for cobwebs to accrue, and the paint's not peeling, exposing dark stains shaped like screaming faces. At night, it can be a little spookier. The motion sensor lights flick off whenever I happen to work late, and apparently, whatever's in front of me is so interesting I don't move enough to register as human life. That can be jarring. The vending machines mysteriously dispense room temperature root beer. Every other soda, ice cold. Root beer, the unsettling warmth of a recently occupied toilet seat. It could be a loose wire somewhere siphoning heat where it shouldn't go, but sure, could be ghosts. But maybe I see things differently. See, I work in IT, a job that is already haunted. The paranoia of another zero-day attack, or a data breach on a site you use, sending your stomach churning as you wonder just how much of your precious data somebody has swept in and scooped up. The scammers sending phishing emails figuring out first spell check, then grammar check, and now skipping all the way to ChatGPT, while their standout emails are becoming harder and harder to tell from legitimate ones. And then the demons, of course. Hell hath no fury, nor horror more dire than a 60-year-old who is 1,000% self-assessed to be superior to you, raging because why PDF no rotate. But that's why I work later afternoons and nights. Perks of climbing the stepladder that passes for a career path at my company. It limits my interaction with the users on typical help desk stuff. Not that it never happens, though. And one day, it did. Like the start of a bad joke, a user walked into the server farm. He carried a tablet under his arm, not one of ours, for my company had recently decided to follow the trends of 2017, innovative as the move was heralded in the company newsletter, and allow BYOD, bring your own device. Having users bring in their crusty home devices was meant to be a savings for the company, as they expected to save a mint on all the issued assets we'd been providing. But all my IT friends know that the D in BYOD can also mean, well, doom is a 4-letter word I've heard used. Instead of being able to scope the job to a set system, asset build, make and model, operating system and software, you're expanding the expectation to any and every random piece of Windows 95 era malware, browser toolbar, and flash game the user could scrounge, wander into your cube, and drop into your lap with a scowl or a smirk. Not that I didn't appreciate the walk through the annals of history by having people bring museum-era technology through our doors, but it's a matter of principle. People mistake me, the network admin, for a help desk for whatever rotten old tablet or laptop they've managed to unearth from their cat-infested houses and drag into my good, clean network. And so did this guy. Well, at least he had the good grace to look uncomfortably embarrassed as he presented his tablet, complete with a couple of random stickers. He'd been trying to get it onto our guest network, but something in our VLAN was outright rejecting it. I suspected a health check. The tablet looked near as ancient as they could go. Who knew the last time it had been updated? I asked, and his glance to his shoes said as much. I began to hand it back, but he was already taking a big step back. He begged, saying he had a meeting, was already supposed to have been on the network, and with his hands in palm-out surrender, He admitted that he was bad with computers. Couldn't I help the guy out just this once? I turned the tablet over in my hands. Amongst the stickers littering the pastel case was a familiar logo, a blue shield. I asked if he played WoW, and again I got that uneasy smile. He asked if that was the one with the castles and horses, then told me his daughter, Rachel, loved that game, had been playing it for years, at least since the 3rd grade. Feeling a bit deflated at having my at-the-time favorite game described as Castle and Pony playtime, yet not being able to say it was not those things, I sighed, then nodded towards the door. I would take on a little help desk work today. Anything for the Alliance, right? He left, thanking me and promising me riches untold, donuts or something. I got to work, figuring out how to limp the old tablet into something the network wouldn't reject like a grafted-on walrus tail. He'd helpfully left behind that old classic, a post-it note, pink, with loopy handwriting, courtesy of the infamous Rachel, down to the "Hope this helps, love ya dads" sign-off. It also contained the username, Candy Wish Kiss, God help me, and password. So I logged in. Right away, the little red notifications highlighting system updates caught my eye. Brilliant. At least this one would be quick. Just as I went to tap on the updates, another app popped up, alerting me of friends online. My finger errantly maximized it. The screen filled with an old friend, ICQ, a messenger app I hadn't seen since forever. You know the one. I have a friend who, whenever she drops something, still says, "Uh-oh," in the same way. And Rachel indeed seemed to have a ton of friends online. I checked the connection. The tablet hadn't been able to join the work intranet, but it was happily chugging along on the open Wi-Fi my company insisted we broadcast for vendors. These messages were live, and just then, that little "uh-oh" sounded. I jumped, pulling the tablet into my chest. I felt a bit like I'd been caught reading her diary. I hadn't meant to open the app, but looking much further through whatever Susudoku, okay, little Susie maybe, well, whatever she wanted to say about their homeroom teacher felt a bit outside my comfort zone, let alone unnecessary for what I was meant to do. Still, I felt a grin spread as I pictured Mr. Middle Manager having these notifications firing off in the middle of some big scrum sesh. Probably best to log out and exit the app for him. I pulled the tablet back out to look at it, but my eye tripped, then fell flat at the new top message. Either I had completely misread the situation, or little Susie had been held back a couple of decades to be in Rachel's 5th grade class, and also was a dude who wasn't wearing any pants. Uh-oh. That one was from me. I opened the chat thread. Maybe the kids were trying to be funny, finding random pictures off Craigslist to gross each other out? Not outside the realm of possibility. I could recall my teen years and the shock sites we'd send back and forth. We'd scream-laugh at each other's reactions. It was a new generation's version of tip the rock over and see all the creepy crawly bugs underneath it. Maybe that's what this was. Maybe that's all this was. But then, I saw what Rachel had been writing, and my fond memories of my own disgusting childhood as a professional gremlin went up in ash that stuck in my throat. This was a little girl, just a kid, talking to someone about how her school day went, how she thought her dad might help her switch servers that weekend to join this guy's guild if he thought he could help her level her druid. and the sicko was playing along, calling her by her username, Candy Wish Kiss, and just gross innuendo about helping her get an epic mount and betting she could really ride it. And then his best impression of Winnie the Pooh, you know, shirt and no pants. To which, in real time, I saw Candy Wish Kiss respond, "Ew, what's that for?" I realized with a sudden, thudding start that Rachel was still logged into this account and was chatting actively with, well, this garbage. My hands felt sweaty, but like cold sweaty, as I realized what I was holding wasn't a joke. It wasn't kids being kids. It was criminal. There was no doubt as to her age, no plausible deniability, and with her side of the convo being exclusively grade school and video games, there was no way this could be chalked up to roleplay. I was watching a guy attempting to befriend a small child, entice her, and it wasn't like watching those TV shows where they used to do that. This was real. This was live. And it was happening to a little kid. A kid whose dad I would have to look in the eye. If it hadn't been before, I felt my heart go from thudding to pounding. I wanted to throw the tablet away from me, but I couldn't. Nor could I just hit log off and remove the chat and all of it from my eyes. Now that I knew this was happening, could see it plain as day, I couldn't look away. Because what if the conversation progressed? My God, what if he was winding up to make plans to meet her? And not just in Stormwind, the main Alliance stronghold in the game. It was summer. Her dad was at work. I didn't know her mom's story, but I doubted she was aware what her kid was up to. But what could I do? On the one hand, I'm staring at chat logs from a little girl, innocently explaining the trials and tribulations of running another Scholomance pug, and she was explaining this to a man, sending pictures of, this was a crime, and I should report it immediately, to the cops? No, my company certainly would want to hear about it in-house first, but then that raised its own issues. I wasn't meant to see any of this. Company policy was to fix the issue with systems that were online. As far as I knew, all the legalese, the terms and conditions saying what you do on our network is monitored, well, those were attached to our company intranet, and that was an intranet this guy hadn't been able to access, and thus wasn't covered under. But I couldn't do nothing, so I decided, F it. He'd brought it to me in person, meaning I didn't have so much as a single email from him condoning me to look through it. I would simply call him back down and tell him in the same way. If I were a dad, I guess that's how I'd want to hear it, man to man. Keeping an eye on the tablet, I summoned him via the company Slack, then realized there was no way he could respond if I was holding the dude's intended system. I pulled up the company Rolodex. While I looked for his number, I glanced back to the tablet, not wanting to, but feeling responsible. I'd missed a bit, and the chat had continued to scroll as they spoke, pushing that nasty photo out of view. But I had no relief. Susudoku was chatting, and what I caught was, "Love to show you how it's done. You said you live by the school, right?" The shudder hit so hard I nearly missed the noise in my ear. I dialed the man, and he had picked up, and had to repeat his greeting before I could summon enough spit to wet my throat and croak out a response. He came back to the server room on the run, turned the color of cottage cheese that had gone off a week before when I handed him the tablet and incited him to scroll up and see what I unfortunately had. And then he was gone. Took a week of leave, too. The whole time, I had this crazy anxiety. I felt like at any minute I'd be pulled into HR for questioning, maybe fired, maybe called upon by Johnny Law himself. But the brightest fear, like a live wire mysteriously heating one flavor of soda, my brain kept returning to Rachel. Did he get home in time? Of course, like you probably, I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know if Susudoku was caught, if Rachel was safe, if she'd had a long sit-down discussion with Dad about the kinds of people that lurk in teen fun chat rooms. I knew he was back, but I couldn't exactly ask him, nor do I want to. After all, I'm still not sure what the legal impact would be from my snooping. But I can give you this. The last time I saw him, I was pushing a cart of new servers through the main office floor. I caught his eye, and he caught mine. I felt my eyebrows raise, body language distilling a dozen questions into just one, the right one. Is she okay? And in return, with a tight smile showing no teeth, he nodded down at me. And that's all the answer I think any of us need. There will still be a ghost of that whole encounter looking over my shoulder, of course. It gives me a shiver every time some user manages to catch me and shove their relic e-machine into my hands, as I wonder what new ghouls my typing may unearth. But at least this ghost is a friendly ghost, and she rolls alliance.
I suppose it says something about us as people, about society at whole. The form factor changes. We moved on from caves to tents, to log cabins, to housing tracts and suburbs, to McMansions. And likewise, computers have evolved from rooms and rooms full of humming devices to something you can carry in your pocket. And these things are largely good, largely safe, provided you take the right amount of precaution and keep a lookout, of course. If you liked the video, please like the video. If you have something to say or share, the comments are there for you. Subscription and notification for if you like to be notified every Tuesday when we meet up here. But I feel like you already knew that. Stay strange, stay safe, and
Goodbye.